In this lesson, we are going to be discussing limiting reactants, excess reactants, how to calculate limiting reactants and excess reactants, and then we'll look at numerical examples. Let's look at life examples. If you have a man and a woman and they get married, they'll form a family. Now when you have 3 men and 2 women, and 2 men get married to 2 women, you have 2 families. But 1 man will still be left. So these women that are completely married are called limiting reactants, while the 1 man left makes the men excess reactant because 1 man is in excess. So you would like to ask the question why. The simple question is because the 2 women available have been married to 2 men and 1 man is in excess. So the 2 women are available in limited quantity while the man is in excess. So a limiting reactant is the one that is used up first in a given equation and no product is formed after it is being used, while an excess reactant is the leftover. So you should be able to differentiate between the two. Now let's clear this misconception that the least amount or the reactant with the least amount in a given equation, is it the limiting reactant? The limiting reactant, the reactant with the least amount? The answer is what? No. For example, if we have 5 men and 8 women and they form a family, let's say if 1 man or if every man can marry 2 women, it then means that 4 men will marry the 8 women and 1 man will be left. Even though 5 men are few compared to 8 women, the 8 women are in limited number here, and so they will become the limiting reactant. How to identify limiting reactants? Given 5 moles of carbon and 2 moles of oxygen to form carbon 4 oxide, we'll find the simplest ratio by dividing the given moles by the coefficient of the reactants in a balanced chemical equation. So we're going to have 5 divided by 1, which is the coefficient of carbon, the number of moles of carbon in the equation, and then we'll have 2 moles divided by 1, which is the coefficient of oxygen, that's the number of moles of oxygen in the given balanced equation. And now we're going to have 5 and 2. 5 is smaller than 2 is smaller than 5, therefore 2 is the limiting reactant, while 5 is what? The excess. Therefore reactant with the smallest ratio is what? The limiting reactant, and that is oxygen, and while the one with the higher ratio is the excess reactant, and that is what? Carbon. Let's look at this other example. If 3 moles of methane reacts with 5 moles of oxygen, let's find the limiting reactant and the excess reactant. First, we balance the equation. So we're going to have 1 mole of methane, 2 moles of oxygen, 1 mole of carbon 4 oxide, and 2 moles of water. So we'll find the simplest ratio by dividing the given moles by what? The coefficient of the reactants. So we're going to have 3 moles of methane divided by 1, which is the number of moles of methane in the balanced equation, and then 5 moles of oxygen divided by 2, which is the coefficient of oxygen in the balanced equation. So this will give us 3 and 2.5. 2.5 is smaller than 3, that means it is the limiting reactant, while 3 is bigger than 2.5, so it is what? The excess reactant. So oxygen is the limiting reactant and methane is what? The excess what? Reactant. Let's look at the numerical question. What is the amount of water that can be made from 5 moles of H2 and 2 moles of oxygen? Find the limiting reactant, excess reactant, and the amount of leftover. So how do we solve this? If it's the first time on this channel, please give us a follow. Solution. You have moles of hydrogen given is 5 moles. Moles of oxygen given is 2 moles. The balance equation is given. This is the balance equation. So first we're going to find the limiting and excess reactant by finding the simplest ratio. And the reactants in this equation are what? Hydrogen, 2 moles of hydrogen, and what? 1 mole of oxygen from the balance equation. So we'll find the simplest ratio by dividing the given moles, which is 5 moles of hydrogen and 2 moles of oxygen, by what? Their coefficient. So we'll have 5 divided by 2 and 2 divided by what? 1, which is the number of moles of oxygen in the equation. So we're going to have 2.5 ratio what? 2. 2 is smaller than what? 2.5. Therefore, 2 is the limiting reagent, and that is oxygen, while 2.5 is the excess reagent, and that is what? Hydrogen. Let's calculate the amount of leftover. We'll do that by what? Getting the ratio of the limiting reagent reactant to what? The excess reactant. The limiting reactant is oxygen, while the excess reactant is what? 2 moles of what? Hydrogen. So the mole ratio now is going to be what? 1:2. But 2 moles of hydrogen was completely used up. So we have to find the number of moles of 2 moles of oxygen was used up. Find the number of moles of hydrogen that will be consumed. So you cross multiply, and that you're going to get S equals to what? 4 moles. So amount of hydrogen left will be what? The number of moles of hydrogen given, which is 5, divided by the number of moles used up in the reaction. That's going to be 5 minus 4. And it will be equals to what? 1. So the amount of leftover is what? 1. Let's calculate the moles of water formed. It's going to be what? The ratio of the limiting reactant to that of the product. That is going to be oxygen ratio what? 2 moles of water. Mole ratio is 1:2. 2 moles of oxygen was used up in the equation. So to find the mole ratio of the product, the amount of product formed, we'll say X. If we cross multiply, we're going to have what? S equals to 4 mole. Therefore, the amount of water formed is 4 moles. So this is how to calculate this. If it's your first time on this channel, do not forget to give us a follow, like, comment, and share this video.